Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining AmeriEstate, and thank you for joining our How to Settle a Living Trust webinar. My name is Caroline Hunter, and I am the Marketing Director at AmeriEstate. And we're going to have Michelle Reese-Johnson and then Rich Brown, who will be overseeing and hosting this. I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items with you. We are recording this, and so we'll go ahead and send out the recording to everybody who's registered and who has attended the webinar. And then if you have any questions, specific questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A button, which is at the bottom of your screen. And we will do our best today to try and answer those. If we don't get to those today, we've got two things you can do. You can either contact AmeriEstate directly and we can answer your questions. You just call our office and then ask for one of our T administrators, and they can go ahead and assist you, or you can go ahead and still put your question in the question and answer box, and then we will go ahead and download those, we'll answer those, and then we'll send those out to everybody. So let me go ahead and turn it over to Rich and Michelle.
Thank you, Caroline. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Rich.
Welcome, everybody. Big group, and that does not surprise me at all because this is a hot topic. I'm so passionate about this because it's the fruits of what we do. This is where the estate plan that we put the folks into comes full circle, and we help the kids exercise these documents. And with that, some have a little bit of experience of this, some have a lot of experience. We recognize that, and we'll cater to that. You know, some people need a lot of administration, some people need just a little bit of administration, but we're here to educate and determine that and assist you however it is necessary. Michelle manages a highly dedicated team that does just this, settles estates with our clients. So they call in and steered to that group. And Michelle, we get that average call, you know, hey, I have this estate planning binder my folks put together, and they just passed away, and my head is spinning. I don't know how to begin. How do we take care of that customer?
Right. Well, you know, those calls unfortunately come in. We've been in business for almost 25 years now. So we've seen a lot of changes in life cycles of our clients. And so this moment of this call that comes in is the time that we shine. This is what it's all about. When somebody passes away, what is the next step? And oftentimes the kids are in a panic when they call. And the first thing we always tell them is, you know, there's no need to panic. Your parents got their trust. Take time to be bereaved.
Very
yes,
important.
There's nothing you need to do immediately when somebody passes away. Just know that you need to just take time. You're going to be planning the funeral. You're going to be calling relatives. You're going to be making all those arrangements, and you need that time to grieve. So we just kind of calm everybody down and say, when everything, the dust settles, give us a call, because number one, we're going to need, the first thing we need is a death certificate. And so in order for us to even start processing anything, we need a death certificate. Even for us to even really kind of talk to you about what happens, we need a death certificate. So, and how do you get that death certificate? Well, that is done through the funeral home. So oftentimes, Rich, I find that the funeral homes ask the clients, how many death certificates do you need? And sometimes you won't know, but I say, depending on how many assets your parents had, or the person who passed, you need a death certificate for each bank account and a piece of real estate. So
by the way, you're going to get those back.
Yeah.
Typically, death certificates are not kept by the financial institution or even the county recorders when they are recorded. You will get those back so they can be utilized again.
Yeah, you can use them over and over. So that's how you're going to get the death certificate. And then the second, so I kind of break trust estate administration down to 5 phases. Now, I'm gonna make this simple because there are so many things that go on in trust administration. It just depends on how many pieces of real estate the decedent had, how many bank accounts they had, how many children there are, has anybody passed away? There's a lot of little things that go on.
Some are super complex, some are
Yes.
super simple, some have very complex instructions. Somebody gets to live in my home after I pass away for a
Right.
period of time. So we sort all that out.
Exactly. So the first thing we want to do is phase one. We want to have that consultation with you. And if you are an AmeriEstate client, before we actually have that meeting with you, we're gathering all the information on the estate. Now, I'm going to break this down to an estate that is an AmeriEstate client, husband and wife. They're both gone now, and they have 3 kids. Very simple, and they have 2 properties. This is going to be a simple estate that we're going to talk about today. Now, if you're on this call and you do not have an AmeriEstate Living Trust, or you're in the midst of maybe settling somebody else's trust and you don't know what to do, we can help you as well. It doesn't have to be our trust. I'm just going to base it on our trust because
If it's our customer, it's this binder you're looking for right here.
right.
This one right here.
This is what the binder looks for. Now, 25 years ago, they were maroon and they didn't have anything on the back. We've evolved, right? But now this is what our logo looks like. Our logo was a lighthouse before. We've updated things. We've been around for a while. So this is what the newer trust looks like, but some of the older trusts are a maroon binder with nothing on them at all. So we always tell our clients, look for the binder. Do you have the binder? Sometimes they don't know where to look. Scour the house. Mom and dad might have put it on a shelf in the library. They could have put it in a safe. It might be under the bed. Sometimes our clients are they have their trust close to their chest and it's been their secret for a while.
That's a very important point.
And you might not even know they have a trust.
Some folks keep their estate plan very, very close to the vest. Some share it out on the kitchen table.
Yeah.
We like that a parent would tell a child that there's an estate plan in place, but if not, what are the clues? How would I know if my parents have something to show?
Right. So the first thing we say is look for the binder. Look in the files, see what you can find. If you still can't find it, well, let's go into a further kind of a search. How about the house? Let's pull a deed up on that house. Let's see how the title is on that house. Look for a bank statement to see if bank statements are titled into the trust. Look for a tax bill, a property
Tax bill will
Yes.
have an abbreviated reference to the trust.
So it'll say on the address, it'll say Bob and Jane Smith, TTEE or TR. And if you see that title on bank statements, you see that title on a property tax bill, they have a trust. So that's the good news. They have a trust, but we got to find the trust. The good news about AmeriEstate clients is we 98% have a copy of our clients' signed trust documents because we make sure that we have over the time gathered signature pages, scan them in. We have hard copies at a lot of the trusts in our files. We've saved a lot of clients from lost trusts, burned trusts that are just in a moving box and nobody can find it. So if it's an AmeriEstate trust, oftentimes we can locate that trust.
Hopefully, when we deliver our product, we tell the client, and if anything happens to you folks, one-way ticket, have the kids call us. We want to be there for it. And so hopefully the folks have steered you to it and you know to call AmeriEstate.
Right. So phase one is that consultation and gathering of information. We want you to have the trust open and we'll have it open on our end. If it's not our trust, we need a copy of that trust so we can review that with you. Okay, and then we're going to talk about it. Well, what does the trust say? Oh, it looks like everything's going simple. Everything's going equally between the kids, the 3 kids. Great. Okay, so we know that we have to do beneficiary notifications. That is the #1 thing. In California, we're going to talk just about California. If you're in one of our other states that we do estate planning in, if you have specific questions to the states that you're in other than California, put those in the chat or give us a call and ask us if you have specific questions. We're talking about California only. So in California,
And these notifications you're talking about, you're getting ready to describe, are required. Is that right?
This is a very, very important step. There is a California notification. It is called probate code 16061.7. And this is the required notification to every potential beneficiary of a living trust that becomes irrevocable, meaning you cannot change it. Somebody has passed away. And I just want to read to you what that says. The trustee is required to serve notice to all potential beneficiaries of a trust whenever it, number one, comes irrevocable, or number two, there's a change of trustee, meaning a manager of an irrevocable trust. And the second most important notice, and this is why it's important that these get out to beneficiaries, is they may not bring any action to contest the trust more than 120 days from the date of this notice, so it gets the clock ticking. So once you send this notice out, which AmeriEstate helps with that, we send it certified, return receipt requested. We want to know that they have received it because that starts the clock. We then set our calendar for 120 days from the date of notification that was received. So in that 120 days, it's kind of the waiting period that is required by California before you can start distributing assets from a trust.
By the way, these notices that are sent also have a coupon at the bottom, and they're free to fill out the coupon, send it back to us and say, yes, I want my copy. And we will supply that copy. They are entitled to that copy.
Yeah, so a lot of people.
And any and all amendments, by the way.
Right, they get the copy, they get this notification, looks like this. And it also says, would you like a copy of the trust? Not everybody wants a copy of the trust, but they need to know they have the right to receive a copy of the trust and any amendments and the schedules of listed assets that are part of the trust. So oftentimes we are mailing those back out to the requested recipients. And then they have another 60 days to review those documents and then come back with any questions, if they have any complaints, if they have any contesting. Sometimes people find out they're not part of the trust and they're very upset. And so they might want to contest. So they have 120 days or 60 days from the date they receive a copy of the trust. So in the meantime, what are we doing while we're waiting this 120 days? Well, AmeriEstate's busy in the background. We're gathering, we're producing documents, and you, as a trustee, we have given you homework.
You become a forensic accountant.
Yes, this is your undercover sister brother moment. Okay, so I said, start looking through the house, find mom and dad's bills, find if there's loans, if there's any loans on the houses, any loans on the cars, do they owe anybody money? Start gathering all that information so we can get an idea of what's really in the estate.
You know what mom and dad's desk look like? You got to fish through all that mail and bring forward every asset, every liability. And we start to build a schedule on that. How does that work, Michelle?
Right. So we start to build that schedule. The next important thing to know is it's very, very important that you get valuations at the time of death on every asset, financial asset, cars, boats, planes, IRAs, CDs,
real estate,
stocks.
Why is that critical, Michelle?
Because when somebody passes away, you get a full step up in basis on all the assets. But
Very, very important tax feature.
To the IRS that this is the value when mom passed away. They want to see that because the IRS is looking for some money, right?
Capital gains.
Capital gains. They love capital gains money. So we want to make sure that we establish the new basis, the new value. Because guess what? I bet you mom and dad, I had a client mom's house was $30,000. Mom has passed. The house is worth $2.6 million now. Guess what? The beneficiaries get to enjoy that full stepped up basis on that house. And a lot of times that's when they decide to sell it.
That new value that you inherited at needs to be documented with the IRS for when you sell it in the future. That lessens the delta between the sales basis and the purchase basis and lessens and hopefully eliminates any capital gains that may be due.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to reach back to the value your parents bought the home at because it's appreciated significantly, and you get a very, very, very nice tax advantage by documenting that value as you get the asset. And that would go with stocks and bonds, any asset subject to capital gains, but real estate, typically real estate for those kids.
Right. And Liz, Rich said, a lot of people don't really know what they're going to do with the real estate yet. That is a big question that we find out a lot. Sorry, the phone is ringing. That's a very big question we find out a lot is, what are you going to do with the property? And the kids are like, I don't know, maybe we might keep it in the family and rent it out. Or I think my sister wanted to buy it out. So there's a lot of things that go on with real estate. So we have to kind of figure that out. But the most important thing is you want to make sure that you establish the new value at the time of death, because you might hold on to that real estate for another couple of years because you haven't figured out what you're going to do yet. Or maybe you just decided, we got to sell it because we're moving out of state. So because you've established the new basis, it'll hopefully go up again, right? Like it was been crazy since COVID. It'll go up again. And so your new basis starts from here, not 30,000 when mom and dad bought it. So you might not have capital gain at all, especially if you moved into the home and then you've lived there 2 out of the last 5 years. If you're married, you can take $500,000, so you might not have any capital gain. So that's why it's so important to establish basis. Maybe you decide to hold on to stock that mom and dad had. So you're going to get that valuation of the stock when when the final spouse passed. And let's say you hold on to the stock and it goes up even more. Guess what? You're ready to sell it. You're not going to have that big old gain from when they bought it for $5 a share. It's now $1,000 a share, right? So it's a really, really great thing. It's a must-do thing is get that value. That's really important. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get you, the successor trustee, your credentials to step up and take over.
How does a financial institution know that you're in the appropriate authority right now? Even if you hand them a death certificate, they're like, why should I deal with you?
Right.
You need these credentials. We will supply those credentials.
Right.
What are those, Michelle?
They're called the trustee certification and the trustee acceptance. And along with that is we have you do what's called an SS4. You sign an SS4 so we can get a tax identification number for the trust. Because once the final mom or dad passes, the final parent passes, their social security number goes with them, passes with them. Kind of think that
It will be retired with the IRS.
Yeah, it retires like they're retired. So they've used their social security for 85 years and now it's retired. So now we need to get you what's called an EIN or a TIN, a tax identification number or an entity identification number. And that's going to be, an 86-36406.
What that will do, it will tell the IRS that these people have passed away. It will notify them of the passing, and it will notify them of the trustee and the trustee address, and it will tell them who is administratively, not ownership, administratively in charge of these assets at this point. And as an administratively, there's tax features and there's distribution features. So these are the credentials for this purpose.
It's kind of like Greg says at AmeriEstate, you can't get through the Marine base without your credentials, right? You can't get to the bank without your credentials. You show up with your ID, your parents' death certificate, and your credentials that we prepared for you, and your W-9 to change the account into you as trustee of the Smith Family Trust now.
Your parents were the settlers or owners of all these assets. Your parents were the initial trustees or managers of these assets. They nominated what we call successor trustees to manage in their stead after they passed away or become incapacitated. These are the credentials for the successor trustee to approach financial institutions for control of the asset.
And there is a great question. Is a tax ID number always necessary?
I can speak to that. Sometimes if you settle on an estate within the tax year of the decedent, they can use the closing tax return and file it under the social. But if assets are kept over, recognizing they're going to retire those socials in that tax year because the people have passed away, if those assets carry over into the new year while you're settling the estate, the IRS wants its own tax ID number and to display the trustee, and you will file the taxes in that new tax year under the new tax ID number because the socials have been retired. So great question, great question. It's typically yes, I would say typically yes.
Let's talk about portability. I see a question up there. As some of you might not know, but as an individual person with or without a living trust, you can pass on $11.8 million without having to pay any kind of estate tax when you pass, or even with your
Double as a married couple.
But if you're married and you have a trust, you can double that. I would say that's a lot to pass on. Most of the AmeriEstate clients.
I
don't
hope
have that
everybody
kind of
here
money.
today has a great big estate tax problem.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah,
That would be a great thing.
yeah, that would be a good thing. And so, the portability issue is, you want to talk to that?
Well, the spouse is portable to the other spouse, thereby doubling the estate tax. So it's a tax feature. What we like to do is when the kids call in and we're having this discussion, we'll have that discussion. We'll determine if that needs to be incorporated in our discussions. It's it's a little bit of a high level discussion, but we'll incorporate that and make that determination. And I hope the answer is yes, because that would mean a very sizable estate subject to the need to implement this portability idea.
Yes. So back in the day when we started AmeriEstate, you could only pass on $600,000
Estate tax free.
estate tax free, and you could double that to $1.2 million
Yes.
if you had a trust. Oh my gosh, things sure have changed in the last 25 years. So AmeriEstate's clients are middle America mostly. We have a lot of millionaires, bazillionaires too, but our core is middle America. So right now, our clients don't have any estate tax problems. So, and even California, there is no death tax if you're a California resident. So a lot of people think, is there inheritance tax? Inheritance tax and estate tax are two different things. No, there is no inheritance tax in California and most of the states that we're in.
Some do, but
Some do.
yeah.
Like certain states, like I know Ohio and Pennsylvania, they have inheritance tax. So if you're a beneficiary, there's going to be inheritance tax on the money you're getting, but there's no inheritance tax in California, period. And if you're under we call it the hog line, right? Under what, 20 million or whatever, there's no estate tax. So your heirs can inherit your estate completely free of estate taxes. And that's a really good thing. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's another discussion later on, but right now it is a lot of money that you can pass on without worrying about estate tax. So once you get your trust certification, trustee acceptance, your EIN number, you're going to start visiting all these banks and institutions where your parents have had their investments. You're going to want to call their advisors, whoever they work with. You got to call their tax guy because he needs to know. Everybody needs to know that mom and dad have passed. And you're going to show up with your credentials and you're going to go ahead and get your name on those accounts as a manager. You don't own it, you just manage it.
Correct.
It's called a trustee. You might be a co-trustee with a brother too. So both of you need to go together. And a lot of times you can mail these and do things over the phone as well. So now you have control of the estate. Okay, so now what do you do? Well, you're busy, right? You're probably cleaning out the house.
you're paying bills,
you're
so you
paying-
have
you
access
gotta-
to that checking
You got
account.
to pay the bill. So that's why you're on title now as a manager. You've got to keep really good records of things you're spending because you're going to do some final accounting that you're going to share with the beneficiaries before you disperse the funds. Now, if everything goes really smoothly, you're going to be able to disperse those funds in 120 days. You could even do it sooner if you want, but everybody needs to sign off that they waive that 120-day right. A lot of people say, you know, it's simple, or we get along, we don't need to wait this 120 days. If everybody signs that waiver, then that successor trustee can go ahead and start dispersing funds from the trust account.
And sometimes it can get complex, right?
And it can get very complex as well. I mean, we have, you know.
Michelle, what if, you know, there's a home and 3 kids get the home? Well, I wanted the home. Well,
Right.
I wanted the home. Well, I wanted the home. Well, then we have methodology and to reconcile that. We have methodology to reconcile, hey, how do I distribute these personal effects? I mean, I wanted the wedding ring. No, I wanted the wedding ring. We have methodology for all these purposes.
And we have great counseling. That's who we are here. I think we're psychiatrists, counselors, sociologists.
We like to think we've seen it all like 5 times. I mean, we really pride ourselves on being able to sort out these complex situations and reconcile family situations and affect a very amicable distribution.
Exactly. So, you know, we want to be a buffer for you. A lot of times we have siblings that don't get along. They don't trust each other. There's issues going on. They can't decide who's going to get what personal assets. So, and sometimes it can get really ugly, and we try to diffuse that. So just sometimes by having us available to talk to and see things differently, we can help with the situation. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that we are here for those conversations as well, because that's very, very helpful, because so many people have never done this. Most of you will have never done this or may never do this. But I would think that the people who are joining us today are maybe they have parents who they know are getting older. What do we have to do? What are the things that are required? But the main thing to know is sometimes properties do not get titled into a trust, or bank accounts do not get titled in a trust. There's things that we start uncovering.
Great question, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how do we approach that?
Well,
That's different. A piece of real estate not in a trust.
Yeah.
That would be different than, you know, a token bank account that didn't make it in the trust. That's why AmeriEstate, I just need to comment on that. When we create these estate plans, we do not rest until the real estate is properly titled in the trust. The most very important asset to avoid probate and not be subject to extra administration after a client would pass away.
right. In a perfect world, your parents set up their AmeriEstate Living Trust. And within this living trust are all the documents they needed during their life while they're alive, which includes their powers of attorney for health and finance. Those are the important documents. If they become incapacitated, who makes decisions for them while they're still alive, but they can't. And then the trust and the pour over will come into play when they pass. So the healthcare directive and the financial power of attorney pass when they pass. Those, you can no longer use those. That's when the trust steps up. Now, for those assets that are not titled into the trust, it happens. A lot of people have refinanced their homes, and for some reason they pulled it out of trust.
I'm going to make that comment because we get that call. You know, my parents spent all this money on this trust, and Rich, they're sending us to probate on the home. Well, we see, you know, 8 years ago they did a refinance, and the bank said we don't refinance this when it's in the name of the trust. They haul it out of the trust. They do the refinance, but they don't ever alert the client to the most important step: get it back in the trust.
Yeah. But
we also provide a will with our portfolio. It's a pour over will. It says anything that falls to this will, give it to the trust. So with some extra administration, we can get that piece of real estate poured through the will and into the trust for the probate redistribution.
Yes, and a lot of times we're able to diffuse that situation. You still are going to have to hire an attorney, and we can give you an attorney referral for that, because AmeriEstate does not do probate. We try to keep you out of probate, but if you do have to go to probate because something was forgotten to be put in the trust, we have great resources to refer you to. And oftentimes the attorney can go to court on your behalf and have that Schedule A that says it was their intention, this property was in the trust. As you can see, Judge, it's always been listed in the trust. They refinanced it and pulled it out, and they never put it in. Can you please, just forego that whole 6-month probate nightmare? And the judge will bless it. A lot of times they'll bless it, and you won't have to go through that.
Michelle, what if my folks left a $20,000 checking account out of the trust and didn't decide to add a payable on death, which is another option? You don't have to make it a trust asset. You could do a payable on death or a beneficiary designation, all in the spirit of avoiding probate. But let's say my folks, had this checking account and used it for their whole lives, passed away, there's 20 grand sitting there, and it's just still in their names, not a trust asset, no payable on death. Can we help?
We sure can. That's where we come into play as well. It's called a small estate affidavit in California. That's what it's called. Across the country, it's a
Similar process.
And basically, all you got to do, as long as the value of the assets that are left outside of that trust in California are under 165,000.
It's up to 180. It increases a little bit a year.
Is it? It's under that amount. The only thing you got to do is you got to wait 60 days. You need a death certificate. We need information about the account, and we do what's called a small estate affidavit. And you walk into the bank and you give it to the bank with your ID, a copy of the will, and they will release it to you as the executor or successor trustee of the trust.
It's very much a declaration by the successor trustee. If you release this to me, I commit to and promise to do the right thing with it and administer this through the estate of my folks. So it's a declaration. So you're taking responsibility and fiduciary responsibility to do the right thing with that asset when the bank releases it to you, without having to come forward with some kind of court order.
So we're coming down towards the end of our talk here.
What phase are we in, Michelle?
We're in, I would say, phase 3.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to call this phase 3. This is my terms, our terms, how we mentally go down and make sure we got everything covered when we're dealing with trust estate administration. We do what's called a notice of plan distribution. And so we've gathered all the assets, we figured out all the debts, the successor trustee has put in their fee for their time. And they also are going to hold back some money because there's taxes coming up, or property taxes.
Partial distributions are completely acceptable.
Yeah. So we do a notice of plan distribution. So that letter goes out to each beneficiary so they can see what's going on, what expenses have been paid out, what's left in the estate, what's going to certain people. Like sometimes people are getting the house and this person's getting 50,000, and then everything is distributed equally, and we're going to see all that. So we're going to send that notice out to everybody, and you have some time to look at that and sign it and get it back. Okay, so that's it. Everybody's signed. Everyone is good. And then the next phase 4 is called the final settlement notice, waiver, and release. So you're going to sign off that you are accepting your distribution plan, and you're releasing the successor trustee of any liability, and you are waiving all that, because the successor trustee, it can be a very, very stressful job for them, and they've dedicated a lot of time and energy, and it is their duty to settle the estate and pay all the debts and taxes. And then anything else remaining in the trust will be paid off at another time, because they have to do final taxes and pay some do a final tax return. So if everything is completely distributed out of the trust, that's when the successor trustee will do that final tax return.
By the way, this is a really great step. It shows that everybody has access to all the same information. Each and every beneficiary gets a summary of what everybody's going to get.
Yep.
Is that consistent with the terms of the trust? And gives you an opportunity to say, I'm not sure I understand this, or gee, Dad told me, 6 times a day for the last 10 years, I get an extra 50 grand. Well, if you didn't tell AmeriEstate and the AmeriEstate attorney and didn't get it in the trust, we're sorry, that's not going to happen. But it's a great step to get everybody on the same page, because some families, honestly, and we pride ourselves on that, are a little dysfunctional, infighting, and it's critical that everybody has access to all the same information, because we find that the frustration revolves around somebody knowing a little bit more than this guy over here.
Yeah, and we don't take pride in our clients being a little dysfunctional, but
It happens, it happens. You know,
but it's very common. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and we're here to see you through it and be your sounding board. And we promise that to your folks and the clients of AmeriEstate, that we're going to be here for their people, their kids, their successor trustees, because I think one of the biggest worries when people set up a trust, I know parents, they worry that their kids aren't going to have anywhere to go to talk to, that they're just going to be on their own out there in the wilderness. And we're like, no, that's why we're here.
yes.
So we encourage them to call us. And you know what? We really are so affordable to get documents done. Sometimes you might be a little savvy, more savvy than others, and you can do you could get your own EIN number. You can do your beneficiary notifications. By the way, in the back of the AmeriEstate Trust Book, Section 11, there's step-by-step of what a successor trustee needs to do.
Guide for a successor trustee.
Yeah, there's probate notifications back there. There's everything back there for a successor trustee to do this on their own.
That's a really neat section for
Yeah.
even the principals to look at and say, oh, this is how my kids are going to approach this down the road.
Yeah.
And it's a great tool for the kids to read through that, gives them a head start on the steps to that we've just been discussing here this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Do we have time to answer a couple questions? Great, so let's go.
wait,
through-
wait, I want to talk about the last phase.
Sorry.
There is one really important last phase I'm going to close this out with, and we'll get to questions, is now that you've received your assets, or even before you get your assets, you need to set up your own living trust so you can continue on the road of estate planning. So if the assets that you inherited from your parents don't go to probate when it goes to your kids, let's keep it going. So that's when we're going to say, okay, it's time for you now.
It's incredible that you see the ease of administration with this product, with these documents, and it's a light bulb moment for kids, like, wow, I need this for my family. You know, comprehensive powers of attorney for asset management, advanced healthcare directive. It's a very comprehensive portfolio, and it's very often a wake-up call to kids when they're settling the trust estate with this big binder that we provide, that, wow, I need this for myself.
Yeah.
We-
They're very thankful that their parents did this.
And they
gift.
recognize that AmeriEstate's always in the background. There's, you know, oh, that attorney retired, we don't have anybody to help you. AmeriEstate's here. We have dedicated departments to whatever may be necessary for trust administration or estate plan administration, I should say.
Yeah, well, perfect. So
By the way, an incredible array of questions. I wish we had all day to go through all these. These are excellent questions. I challenge Carolyn to find the best ones that we need to respond to here, because
they're all so good. They're all so good. And I know you guys can hear me, but you can't see me, and that's okay. So I'm going to go through some questions. And then again, like I said, if your question isn't answered live today, we will go ahead and get to those and email those out to everybody. Even if you put anonymous on there, we'll take all the questions and send them out to everybody. So here's a question from Robert. If someone was left out of a trust, why would you send them the beneficiary notice?
That's a great question. Okay, so if you are a potential beneficiary,
Blood child,
what does that mean? A blood child.
but you were not provided for in the beneficiary structure, but you're a blood child. They bypassed you for whatever reason.
You need a beneficiary notification.
Got it. Okay.
Period.
And then Robert, if you need to pursue this any further, and anybody, if they've got any questions, wants to schedule an appointment, you can contact AmeriEstate at 800-235-0963. And I'll.
Always find us at AmeriEstate.com.
Mhm.
Incredibly informative website, AmeriEstate.com. You'll spend a lot of time there. We have blogs on every topic under the sun. Very incredibly informative website. We have attorney bios, who's the attorney you'll be working with. So go visit us, please.
Great. Here's a question from, is it Jeannie? Jeannie, if my bank account said trust, will the children receive it right away, or do they have to wait for the trust to be paid out?
Want to answer that? Or you want me
Okay.
to?
Conceivably, the trustee can go in and gain access to that account and immediately use it. And sometimes that's absolutely necessary because you need money to pay the funeral home, right? So it depends on when you can get death certificates, but we can get you very, very quick access to those funds. We matter of weeks
Well, you
or
don't,
less.
you do not have to wait the 120 days. If you have, as a successor trustee, have a bank account in the name of the trust and you feel like everything is paid and everybody is amicable and you want to give money out right now, you can.
Or you need that access to pay bills. So
Yeah.
you need that immediate
You just
access.
don't want to give money away and then go, oh, wait a minute, I
I
forgot
need to
this.
haul that back
And
from
then
you.
it's hard to get money back when you've given it out.
That's true. Here's another question. This is from Len, and this one kind of sits close to the
Hi,
heart.
Len. I know, Len.
Len, what if a successor trustee is unwilling or unable to settle the trust?
That's happened.
Oh, it
Yes.
happens all the time.
And usually we ask the settlors or the owners, we call them settlors, to name a series of people because one may be in Europe. So the second one comes forward. Oh, may have passed away. The third one comes forward that can serve. What if you run out of people? Our trust has a methodology to pull a successor trustee from among the beneficiaries. So there's always going to be somebody administrative in the mix and available because, yeah, you're right. Without that person, we're frozen. So
Yeah.
that person can always come forward.
And when we do the trust, setting up the trust for the clients, we insist they have the backup plan people. We want at least 2 backups to the successor trustee. And if sometimes people can't even barely come up with one, in that case, and in only that case, we go with it. But what if something happens? It's going to be difficult to get somebody else to step in. And that's when oftentimes it's going to come out of the pool of beneficiaries. Okay. And they're going to have to decide who of the beneficiaries will be that trustee. But you have to make sure that, you have beneficiaries that aren't on public assistance, don't have special needs, they're not minors. So you have to really be careful if you have those kinds of beneficiaries that you need some good backup plan. And another good thing is go ahead and name a professional trustee. They're always a great backup. And the trust provides that if there are no backups that can handle, the trust will allow a professional to step in and do it.
Perfect, great. Here's a great question from Carl. Does a step up in basis raise your real estate taxes?
Ooh.
It's a different tax.
Yeah.
One is related to capital gains taxes, and that's ultimately when the property sells. The IRS is going to say, oh, we're going to make this calculation here and determine if you owe capital gains taxes. Property taxes are a different animal.
Totally new
And-
subject, whole new subject on that.
And there's nice features.
Paulus will talk to you about that because number one, if you're here in California, Prop 19 was passed a couple years ago. That's very, very crucial that you know about that before you start passing property on to somebody.
Done properly,
You
you can
have to have a
enjoy the
consultation on
property
that.
taxes that your parents enjoyed.
Yeah.
Without them recalculating those property taxes and maybe going up very significantly because the property appreciated significantly.
Yeah. And we've got time. We'll do a couple more questions. We'll do 2 more questions and then we'll go ahead and answer the questions offline. Here's one from Rosemary. If you have multiple beneficiaries and only one refuses to sign the trust distribution plan or provide the social security number, can you distribute to the other beneficiaries?
Yes, you can.
By the way, we don't automatically need the socials of all the beneficiaries, so that may not be necessary. But if one is stonewalling, yes, we can proceed with distribution. And because the one that's stonewalling is going to have to tell us why they're stonewalling, and maybe it's for a legitimate reason and we'll address it. And typically it's not for a legitimate reason. Maybe they just have a hot button because they didn't get what they expected.
Great, okay. And then here's a question from Renee. Let's see, if we did, so if AmeriEstate did our trust, is there a cost for the executor to get assistance from you to help settle the trust?
You know, there's no cost for the consultation. So as long as the clients, well, how we're set up is a legal plan. So most of the clients, or a lot of the clients, are members of the legal plan. And what that means is when their executors and successor trustees call us, we offer a free consultation to help them understand their role as successor trustee. From there, you can decide, the successor trustee can decide what they want us to prepare for them. I mean, sometimes they can get their own EIN and do their own probate notification letters, but sometimes they want us to do those things. So we will quote them per document that we're doing.
Right.
We're very reasonable.
Remember, we said maybe there's a little administration, maybe there's a lot of administration. Everything has a price tag,
Flat fee.
and we will quote that up front, and you'll know exactly what the fee structure is before you're obligated to any of that fee structure. Maybe clients just need us to do some deed work in the very end of the whole mix, but we're here soup to nuts, and that's why it's kind of hard. What does it cost? Well, that depends.
It depends. How many properties are we dealing with? How many bank accounts are we dealing with? How many beneficiary notifications do you want us to mail out? Are you going to do that part? We like to kind of let you pick and choose, but really in the perfect world on our end, we want to do it from start to finish, because we know the pitfalls when people are doing it themselves, what happens, and they end up calling us for guidance. I filled this form out wrong and we got to fix it. We really don't want to go back and fix it. We just want to do it right from the get-go. I find filling out SS4 forms is very, very confusing for most people. They don't know how to fill out the questions. The questions are very vague, and you could fill it out completely wrong, and you could get yourself in a mess. You know, leave it to us to do those things. For instance, if you just want us to do the trustee certification, the trustee acceptance, the EIN number, the W-9, that's $300. That's nothing. And you're doing it right. And if that's all you need, that's all you need. If we're going to do probate notification letters for you, we charge $180 a piece for each beneficiary, because what that entails is certified, return receipt requested, keeping track if anything, if anybody has sent notifications back to us, they want a copy of the trust. We got to print that copy. We got to mail it, certified mail. So there's a lot of cost and time involved in that as well. But that's a flat fee.
And remember what you're paying for, not only for us to do the work, but we're taking responsibility for the work.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of load off an individual who's trying to wing it.
Yeah.
So again, we got so many great questions, and I promise you we will go through all your questions and get answers out to everybody. If it's something immediate that you need right away, please call our office at 800-235-0963. And our receptionist will be able to put you in touch with the right person, and we'll be able to help you out. As Rich mentioned, you could visit AmeriEstate.com. Sign up for our newsletter at the bottom if you're not already signed up, and get a lot of good information. And
I will mention that a lot of these questions are on our website in a blog form answered. So yes, it's a tremendous resource.
Yes, but we will go ahead and get to these and get these mailed out to or emailed out to everybody.
Right. Yeah, we'll take care of all these questions. I did see anonymous attendee, my parents have one of the old maroon binders. Yes, we can send a new trust binder out.
I read a
Absolutely.
couple
We
of those
want you to have it. That way you
Uh-huh.
can find it on the bookshelf, right? The
Yes.
maroon binders is when we started.
We'd be
and
honored to give you a fresh
Yeah.
We'll
binder.
give you a fresh one.
We'll give you one, absolutely. I had another person ask for one, so I've got their address and we'll get that
Yeah.
out to you, absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yes, but please sign up for our newsletter so you can get information about additional webinars. And we put these webinars on for you with subjects that matter to you, so we can, help better educate you.
Yeah, oh, and Alberto, yes, the trust certification at the bank is enough. It's all about what the bank wants in order for you to get access to the account.
See, don't you love that Michelle knows these people? I mean, this is how great, she actually
Hi.
works with these clients.
I don't
so-
know the anonymous,
No,
Mr. Anonymous, I don't know. you.
yeah, but some of them, I like the fact that you've recognized some of your own clients on here and addressed their
Can
questions.
AmeriEstate be named as a successor trustee? No.
Although, great question. We have a whole list of
sometimes.
suggested corporate and individual that can act as trustee.
Yeah.
We get that question a lot. I don't want my kids doing it. I really don't have anybody. We can provide you with some folks to call through, some commercial organizations and some individuals that will act as successor trustee. And very often they say, as long as you add this language to the trust and allow me to serve, I'd be pleased to do so.
You know, maybe someday AmeriEstate will bring in our own independent trust department, but right now we're not equipped to do that. I know Greg Reese, president of AmeriEstate, some of the clients just love him to death and they wanted only him. He's the only one that can do it. So he has agreed to be a co with the kid. But other than that, we don't have the capacity to be a trustee. It takes a lot of work, time, and energy until we get a whole new department built out. Maybe down the road that we'll put that on our bucket list.
Yeah, great. All right, well, thank you, everybody. And again, we will get to your questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Caroline.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.